Over the last week or so, I've been doing a lot of recalibrating, refining my focus, my language, and evaluating how I'm showing up. In the middle of all of that, I found myself asking a question I know many faith driven women and entrepreneurs wrestle with. Am I being consistent or am I operating out of pressure? Hey there, my name is Stephanie, and I want to welcome you to the Flourish podcast. Today, let's unlock that question. Am I being consistent or am I operating out of pressure? I know so many of us deeply care about being faithful, committed, and responsible, and sometimes those desires can quietly turn into pressure if we're not paying attention. Welcome to the Flourish podcast for faith-driven women who are ready to take responsibility for their health, time, and calling. I'm Stephanie Book, and I coach women to gain clarity, create simple systems, and build intentional structure so they can move forward with consistent, faith-led action in the work God is calling them to build. If you're ready to live and lead with alignment, peace, and purpose, this is the place for you. Let's begin. We hear all the time that consistency is the key to growth. Yes, that's true, but sometimes we confuse consistency with forcing ourselves to keep going, even when something feels misaligned. Many of us don't struggle because we lack discipline or desire. We usually struggle because we're carrying too much for too long without pausing to ask ourselves if we're still doing even what we're called to do, or if it should be something that we're doing in this season. Pressure can disguise itself as faithfulness. I have found that firsthand, for sure. What that sounds like is I can't stop, or I have to keep going no matter what. How many of you have said that with me? Or if I pause, I'm failing. If I stop for 1 week, if I don't do that one post, if I miss that one episode, I'm going to be a failure. That's not true, right? We know that language is not true, but yet we put that pressure on ourselves so quickly. And I know for myself as well, I do the same thing. I operate so often out of pressure rather than that clarity and that focus and just that consistency to help me grow, to help me move toward the things I want to create. I have thought about this, and like I said, I've even forced myself to continue, but pressure and obedience, they're just not the same thing. So this is a truth that I've been coming back to as I've been evaluating this week. Consistency does not mean never pausing. It means really returning with clarity, taking those pauses, taking those moments to have a clear intention of where we're going. Is that right in our season? And I have talked about that before on the podcast and in different things that I share on social media, asking ourselves, having that clarity and making sure that it's aligning with where we're at in the season that we're at. The seasons where consistency looks like a steady flow, and then there's seasons where consistency looks like listening, stopping, refining, and choosing focus over force. Discernment asks a different question than pressure does. Pressure asks, how do I keep up? Where discernment says, what is required of me right now? And that question, my friends, that's what matters. What is good for me right now? What is required of me right now? Not how do I keep up? How do I fit in? Do I fit the mold or the goals or the outline or the specificity, or there's a big word, that I have set aside for me? Or do I need to have some discernment, some refinement, and asking if this is what's required of me right now? Now, Scripture speaks about this tension in a way that's often misunderstood. In Galatians 6:9, Paul encourages us by saying, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." This verse isn't a call to hustle or push past the wisdom, and it does not give us permission to force ourselves too far into burnout. That's just exhausting. Paul is speaking about perseverance in what is good and staying faithful without losing heart when the work feels slow or even unseen. I think that's important here because weariness often comes when we confuse faithfulness with pressure. Let me say that again. Weariness often comes when we confuse faithfulness with pressure. Discernment protects our perseverance. It helps us continue in what is good without growing weary unnecessarily. It keeps us grounded. It keeps us paused. It keeps us refined. It gives us that clarity. We want to persevere. And sometimes, yes, sometimes that's a little bit of sacrifice. Sometimes it's stepping into the messy. But that doesn't mean that we're constantly on the pressure to do all the things all the right ways at all times, right? I would not call myself as someone that is strictly a structure person, but I know structure and clarity and focus helps me. I am often that kind of person that might write something down after she did it and cross it off, but I don't live by a to-do list, if that makes sense. So I have some order, I have some structure, there's refinement, there's order into what I'm doing, but a lot of the things that are going on that I'm measuring myself on is not what I have written down on the list, but on the things that are up here in my mind, the things that I'm holding my own pressures on myself to say that I have to show up a certain way. And if I don't, I'm going to fail. If I don't do it this way, no one's going to see it. Or if I don't do this, and on and on and on. And yes, like I talked about in the beginning, we want consistency. We want to show up in a way that is consistent, but that is not the same as pressure. And I hope that you're hearing this. I hope you're understanding the difference. Sometimes the most faithful thing we can do is pause long enough to make sure we're still doing the good we were actually called to do, and that we're not just staying busy. My friends, when we don't allow discernment, then we become scattered. We're stuck. We keep showing up without clarity, and that's overwhelming. And then that leads to burnout. We stay busy without any direction. Focus isn't about doing more. It's about choosing what matters most and sometimes letting the rest wait. I know that can feel uncomfortable, especially if you value your commitment and you value your follow through. I know that, and I get you and I hear you because I'm like that too. But I've learned when I pause, when I take a moment and sit back and make sure things are aligned, make sure that the clarity is there, it actually is more freeing, and it actually will bring less burnout and more excitement back into what you're doing because you know that it's back aligned to what your focus is. You have more peace, you have more clarity because things just feel less pressure because you're coming out of discernment, not out of pressure. When we have focus, it actually creates more space. And then when we create space, it allows clarity to rise up. So I want you to reflect on a few general questions this week. I'm not going to go deep into things this week because I wanted to keep this episode light because, again, I'm evaluating, I'm in refinement of my season. And so I want to model that for you as well. But I wanted to give you a few things that might help you as you're walking through this. So I would love for you to ask a few questions of yourself, write them down, put them in a journal, wherever it is that you write things down. But I encourage you to ask yourself these questions. First of all, it says, where might you be pushing just to prove that you're consistent? Oh, that one hurts. That one hurts a little bit. I bet you, every single one of you that are listening to this, because most likely you are someone that wants to grow, that you are committed to maybe going towards some goals. Maybe you're in business and you're wanting to see that next dollar amount, or maybe you're wanting to read that certain amount of books and you want to learn certain things. So I know you have those goals. And what are you pushing to prove that you're consistent? Or maybe there's a pause there. Maybe it doesn't mean that you give up, but it means that maybe you're pushing for the pressure, not that with that discernment. The next one, what are you doing out of pressure instead of purpose? I know that they sound similar, but they're not. So what are you doing out of pressure? How many times have you said yes to things that you know very well you should have said no, but now you feel stuck? Are those things that you are doing out of pressure, or are those things that are in alignment of your season? So sometimes that actually requires some journal, some time in prayer, spending time in the Word and discerning where you're at with that clarity. And sometimes that might be letting something go. Now, I'm not telling you have to let it go right now, but I want you to recognize that. Recognize, what are you doing out of pressure instead of purpose? And then what would it look like to choose focus over force just for this season? What if you chose to look for a focus? And how often do I say one thing? How do you think that would feel if you just chose a focus over force, over that pressure, and you went with discernment and stepped into just one focus and try that out for a season and see how it goes. Maybe try it out for a week and then see how it brings you forward. And I guarantee you're going to feel different. You're going to feel lighter. You're going to have less pressure as you do that. So you don't have to answer it all right now. I mean, I don't know how you're listening to this, but I do encourage you to write these down, pause, go back, listen to them, and ask yourself those 3 questions. You know what? I'll even make it easier for you, and I will just read them right now again. So, where might you be pushing just to prove that you're consistent? What are you doing out of pressure instead of purpose? And what would it look like to choose focus over force just for this season? I would love for you just to notice what rises up to the surface as you ask yourself these questions. So do this for yourself, okay? So if you're in a season where you need clarity and structure and not more noise, I want you to know you are not alone. You can hear, I've already said it. I'm like that too. Much of the work I do in helping women is to slow the noise, take responsibility what matters, and move forward with intention instead of overwhelm. I love being able to help those that are ready, that want to change, that want to move into what's next, but they need that clarity. Maybe there's a few questions that you need to ask yourself to be able to get to that next spot. Maybe you need some guidance, someone to walk you along because you've been dealing with living out of pressure rather than discernment. Maybe you're just like, Stephanie, I have no idea, but I know I'm meant for something different, but I'm ready. I'm ready to take full responsibility for my health or for my mindset or for my calling. Maybe there's a ministry that you know that you are meant to start or be part of, but you're just not sure where to go first. Or maybe there's a business that you want to start and it's there and it's like scratching like at the surface, like you just want to do it and you're ready to make that commitment. Then I want to be able to help and support you because that's my favorite part. Being able to bring you from those ideas and that excitement or that desire that you have and bring it towards something that you can actually do so you can see what you're going to be able to create. You know, when we have that clarity, when we have we're learning how to remove pressure and have that discernment. When we step in and have the systems that we need and have the rhythms and have the structure and have the clarity that we need, things can start flowing and come together so much easier. And so I love doing that. And so that's my desire to help you. But I would want to say, if this conversation resonated with you at all, but you know you need that structure and clarity to move forward, I created a faith-fueled goal and planning bundle that will help you slow down, focus, and take your next right step with intention. The goal planning bundle is available for only $17, and I really designed it to support exactly what we kind of talked about in this episode. So you can grab it in the show notes or connect with me on Instagram at steph.book or wherever you follow me on social media, or you can drop faith below and I will get that to you. But more than anything, I want you to hear this. You know, you are not behind. You're learning how to lead yourself with wisdom, and that's awesome. That matters. Friends, I hope that this episode was helpful to you. I hope that you can see the difference between that pressure that we put on ourselves and the discernment. I highly encourage you to answer those questions and then spend some time, bring them to the Lord and ask Him, you know, what am I holding on to this season that maybe I need to let go of? What is it? What is my next best step to take forward? And have that conversation with Him, write it out, journal your prayers to the Lord, talk to Him, read His word. And then I'm here. Like I said, I love being able to help women step into that next step of clarity. And maybe this is that chance. Maybe this is the next best step for you. So make sure that you grab that bundle. Again, it's only $17 and it's full of like helpful tools for you. But also I added a 7-day faith-fueled take responsibility audio that I have specially just that I created for you. And so it's just me. They're short, one for 7 days to help you walk through that. And so you'll be able to grab that as well. So friends, please, as always, remember that you are worthy and capable of living a full and flourishing life. Success isn't just possible. It's meant for you. Take care. Thank you for spending time with me today. If this episode encouraged you, I invite you to take one simple, intentional step forward. You will find many resources linked in the show notes to support you as you build with clarity and faith-led action. If this conversation resonated with you, please share the podcast so that this message can reach other women who are ready to move forward with purpose. Until next time, remember, you are worthy and capable of living a full and flourishing life. Success isn't just possible, it's meant for you.